And now, again, another thank you. Thank you for letting me and Mary share our story today about our trip to Biloxi, Mississippi. Here, Mary and I have everything packed and ready to go. The van is full of men's sweatshirts, coats, jeans, hats, and gloves, and a few other things. And people say, do they really need that in Mississippi? Yes, they do, because it does get cold there. And last year, if you remember, Mary and I, the first night we were there, a homeless man froze to death. It was so cold. So it does get cold there, and they don't have a lot of extras to share. So we take as many clothes, jeans, sweatshirts, things like that down there. And I think, did Carter say up here, like if he has 2 coats, he can share another coat? So thank you, Carter, for putting that plug in for me. I appreciate that. He knew what I was going to say before I even said it. So anyway, on the first day that Mary and I arrived, generally no one else is at the mission house but us. So we unload the van of all of our stuff, and we separate it and fold it, and we basically take over the central gathering area of the mission house before the others arrive. And then that way we can just hand it out easier to those that need it. Batesville has a Spice Girl that I don't know if you knew that, but she's passionate about cooking. She's a member of our church, and this is how she chooses to help the homeless in Biloxi. She sends spices every year, and I don't know if you buy spices, but spices are expensive, so that's not something that they get donated often. And as you can see here, Gabe and Kat are the chefs, and they are absolutely thrilled each year that we show up, because it gives them a way to doctor up all the generic food that they get, because they really never know what they're going to get donated, but they are magic with their spices and with their donations that they are given. Okay, so this space is a space that I had never seen before. This is the basement of the mission house, and it's over on the right or the left side of that far picture. That is the space that Loaves and Fishes basically has to run their mission out of now. I might just read this. So this was in January. There's a Hard Rock Casino in Biloxi, about a quarter of a mile where Loaves and Fishes used to be when I had visited there in the previous years. They did not like the proximity of the homeless people to their venue, so they paid the owners of the building to sell it to them. They then, in turn, converted that into a Boys and Girls Club, but left nowhere for Loaves and Fishes to operate. And they did that so that the homeless people would not be anywhere near their facility. So beginning in November, they had separate locations for their frozen foods, their dry foods, their refrigerated foods, and their offices. So that's 5 different facilities they had to have all their stuff spread out to make it work. And they were cooking at the little kitchen at the Back Bay Mission House, and which it worked, and I had to commend them for making it work. Instead of saying, oh, we're homeless, we're not gonna make it work, they made it work with all their stuff spread out all over town, and then they would feed the people in the parking lot. So every single day they had to unload those tables and unload those chairs and put them back in the basement for the next day. So here you can see a meal being served in the parking lot, and it is cold. And one problem that remained with that was that there was a lack of place to go and get warm for maybe the first time of the day. And here you have a picture of the spiced up meatloaf. That was a concoction of all different kinds of meats. And the mashed potatoes were donated by us. They were real potatoes, not box potatoes. And we'll talk more about our church's donation later. So these are just some random pictures that I thought were interesting. Instead of a bathroom, to like maybe at the the old Loaves and Fishes where they could have like brushed their teeth, washed their face, you know, get a warm washcloth, whatever. Well, that didn't exist anymore, so the only option they had was this portalette that was in the parking lot. This picture is of a man who tried to sell me this fish that he had caught the night before for $30. I think I said I'm allergic to fish. I don't know what I said, but I didn't want to buy a fish for $30 that I know had probably not been on ice for quite some time, but he tried. And then here you can see there's a walker and then there's a bike, and that is like someone's whole life right there. That's what they have. That's their house. That's their everything. On a brighter note, I have a friend who lives here in Batesville who works for a candy company, and every year he sends us down with a generous amount of candy because who is out there that candy can't make you smile? And they really do like it. It's just kind of a fun little goofy thing, obviously, that no one needs, but it does bring a smile to their face. So in January, Loaves and Fishes had just acquired a new permanent facility. So Mary and I helped them move from the old place to the new place. So my point of that is you never know what job you're going to be given when you get there. You kind of just go there and say, give me a job, and you do your job. So this is their new facility. It is an old high school gymnasium, and that light shining in you may think is a window, but it was not a window, it was a hole in the wall. So they obviously had a lot of work to do before they could make it their new facility. But I do think in the end it'll probably be a blessing because it's kind of off the beaten path. It's a little bit closer to the Micah Day Center. And that field that you see off in the bottom right-hand corner, obviously a long-term vision, but they are thinking that maybe they can make that into a tiny home village for homeless people. What you can see here is I want you to know that I did find everything that our church has donated was safely moved to the new facility. So that being the 2 freezers, a meat slicer, the serving trays, the washer, the dryer, those are all things from the Batesville community that we've helped donate, and they do take good care of their things. Here's just some pictures of some friends. The lady with me in the pink, her name is Charlotte, and she just shows up and volunteers every day. I met her actually I think 3 years ago and didn't see her the past 2 years, but I did see her again this year. And then you see the one guy sporting his new Chicago Bears really warm sweatshirt. And then the guy in the bottom, and that's the chef, Gabe, and I met him my first and second year there, and I just really loved him and enjoyed working with him, and I had not seen him for the last 2 years, but he is back in action at Loaves and Fishes. And here again, just some random pictures. They were kind of lax about the mask thing, but not all the time. But it was better this year than last year, that's for sure. So here are some people showing off their new clothes from Batesville. They were super happy to get their nice warm things that were just donated and brought down to them from us. So where did your money go? Here's where your money went. I tried to divide the money evenly between the wonderful description that Cindy gave, the 3 different parts of the mission. So each facility got about $300. And so this was $306, and on the right here is the 3rd meal that Cindy mentioned, and that stuff is all to go, and it's just like a little pop top, and a lot of them just eat it cold, even the ravioli right out of the can. But our church paid for all of that, and the fresh, delicious mashed potatoes, fresh fruit, and they actually were going to have hash browns in next morning for breakfast with the onions and the green peppers. And the building crew wanted to purchase 3 new tools, so we gave them enough money for that they were in need of. The Micah Day Center, as you can see, their stuff is like all over the place what they wanted. Some plastic silverware, some sugar for coffee, toothbrushes, deodorant, and of course, lots of men's and women's underwear of various sizes. So now these are pictures of the facilities that we stay at. You can see the dorm area, you can see the shower area, the kitchen that has its own walk-in freezer and cooler. And that way you can cook all of your meals there when you go, so you don't have to like go out to eat all the time. And then in the middle is the gathering area, minus all the clothes. Mary and I have gotten rid of all the clothes by then. So anyway, I'd like to encourage you to go, and you too can enjoy these luxurious accommodations when you visit Biloxi next year. Mary and I already have our dates set. We're going January 7th through the 14th of 2023. And I just want to give a little reminder that this mission is our church's mission. This isn't my mission. Like, I just kind of got roped into it. I know lots of other people from our church have gone. They've been there for 100 years. And people from our church have been going for a long time. And I'm not 100 years old. So it's not just my mission, it's our church's mission, so please remember that. And hopefully you can join us, and if you can't, hopefully you can donate in some way. So I just want to put a reminder up, because I do have some friends here that came. If you want your money today to go to Back Bay Mission, make sure you put it in this envelope. Because if you don't put it in the envelope, it just goes to the general fund. But if you want to go to Back Bay, make sure you put it in an envelope, please. And now, my friend Mary, she spent some time working with a homeless person who was once homeless. And so she got to know a little bit more about the homeless population on a personal level, and she's going to share her story with that. Thank you. Oh yeah, in case I forget, if anyone has any questions afterwards, I can come up with Mary and join her. Just let us know.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a real privilege to be here this morning with all of you. And I have to say that the 2 years that I've had the opportunity to go with Elizabeth to this wonderful mission has been truly life-changing for me. And it came at a time when I really needed something very substantial in my life, and this was it. So God was looking over me, I think. So as Elizabeth said, this year I was asked if I would help kind of sort out their food pantry. Because of COVID, they had not had a lot of volunteers the last several years, and the food pantry, though it was there, was kind of in disarray. And I had experience working in food pantries in Cincinnati and when we lived in Hilton Head, so I kind of had the gist of what had to be done, but I had no idea how much had to be done. So just to give you a background, they get their donations from church groups, from individuals, various organizations, as well as government food comes in. But anything that they get from the government has to be separated completely. Like you had to dedicate shelves to just government. You couldn't mix it with other donations. So that in itself was, kind of tricky to figure out what was what. Fortunately, there was a gentleman, his name was Carl. Carl had been working with the people at the mission for some time. He had been homeless at one point, and he had been in the military, and when he came out, he said to me, I was just a mess. He didn't really go into details, and I really didn't pry into what that meant, but he acknowledged that he had been homeless, so he could really relate to things that were going on. The food pantry, if you had a home, had some type of housing, you could come once a month, and based on the number of people in your family, you were able to get canned goods and dry goods, and sometimes they had meat, some fresh produce, eggs, but it was kind of a hit or miss what was going to be there, but they were supplied pretty well, depending, I say, on the number of people in the family. The people they called the day trippers are people who basically use loaves and fishes, and the Micah Center could come also only once a month, and they would get, like Elizabeth was saying, like Deanna sausages and things that didn't need to be heated or refrigerated. It was kind of a meager amount of food, but they were really grateful. I guess when you're hungry, anything looks good. But Carl was very helpful in that too, because he had been involved in the distribution, and he just, kind of guided me through that, because that was a different experience for me. But we spent a lot of time together, and he shared with me some insight into what it's like to be homeless and some of the plights of the homeless. One of the big issues, and I don't think this has been long-term, more short-term, is that drugs have become a significant issue. And the drug of choice is meth. Why meth? Well, meth is cheap. Meth, when you take it, makes you warm, keeps you warm. And meth takes away your appetite, so you're not hungry. So in a lot of ways, it serves more purposes than just getting that high feeling. It satisfies some of those inner things that you need, sad but true, right? He also said that there are times when, if the homeless need medical care, they arrive at an emergency department, and they can sit there for hours, and they will hear people say, well, they don't have any place to go, what difference, and they take other people before they take them, treat them. They don't worry that they're in pain or, have other type of illnesses going on, and just kind of a very sad scenario. And I was an emergency department nurse for many, 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 many years. In fact, I directed an emergency department. That made me so angry to hear that health professionals would treat any other human being like that. But sad but true. Also, Carl explained to me that, sometimes people that were homeless, it was their way of life, and even when given the opportunity to have a roof over their head and a bed to sleep in, it was uncomfortable because they were so used to sleeping out under the stars. So they were used to sleeping on a hard surface, not a bed. And sometimes they would just give up and go back to the woods. Elizabeth did you show that slide,
That's
Willie?
when the power ran out of the...
Okay. There's a volunteer, his name is Willie, and he comes every single day and helps with the loaves and fishes, and he was offered housing, but because it was too far for him to get to the center every day, he declined, and he went back and lived in the woods and continued to come every single day. So there's a lot of goodness in these people. I think we overlook them as God's children, as we are. One of the things that Carl asked me, well, first of all, we talked a little bit about religion, and he was very faith-based, God love him, and he said that when everything else failed him, he had his faith, and that he prayed for God to guide him, and he prayed that people like Elizabeth and I continue to support the mission. So I feel like every day I pray for Carl, and I'm sure Carl is praying for me, which is very comforting. When we were leaving, Carl asked me 2 or 3 things. One was that I pray for him. And as I said, we pray for each other. 2, that I send him an email. Because he had a computer, but he never got any emails. So once in a while, I send him an email. And the last thing was to bring home this message that these homeless people, as I say, are God's children as we are. And if you see a homeless person, to look at them, to say, hello, how are you? Good morning. And not necessarily, you don't have to give them anything, but you're giving them that connection to another human being. So just something to think about. Let's see. I think that, as I said, this has been an amazing experience for me. Meeting people like Carl is very humbling, but also very encouraging, that you can obviously hit rock bottom, but if there are people in the community such as all of you who are willing to put forth a little effort and to help, that their lives can change. So thank you very, very much. And as Elizabeth said, don't forget to use your envelopes.
Let us sing the hymn together.